everyone and welcome back to my channel in the flight briefing room. It's going to be a short video today on visors and goggles and why, in my experience, I've used both and prefer one to the other. I've flown with some different types of helmets over the years, especially this big beastie here which I used on my altitude record attempt. The reason I used the big helmet was it allowed me to have fully enclosed ventilated space within my face. Because it gets very, very cold at altitude, I needed a way of actually keeping my face out of a slipstream, completely out of a slipstream. This type of helmet is absolutely fantastic for that type of environment. It's got a ventilation gap here, which will allow the pilot or user to have effectively a small amount of air coming in, which stops the visor fogging up, and it has a thing called a wind dam on the bottom, which completely seals underneath your chin. So as long as you've got a nice little scruff underneath, you won't actually get any form of cold air inside the helmet. The problem is, as those that fly paramotors will find, you have very, very limited visibility. The visor doesn't really quite get out the way. You can pop it all the way up and get rid of the wind dam, but you lose masses of vertical visibility. This side pieces here come really quite far forward, so you lose a lot of lateral vision out the sides. And when you're trying to ground handle a wing and look up and actually see the tips and work out what's going on, this helmet is not the most ideal for that type of flying. If we then come on to the paramotoring type helmet, which is this sort, you'll then find that actually you've got much better visibility all around. But what you then do is, because you don't want the slipstream in your face, you then mount a visor on the front of it, which is great. But actually it doesn't really, and this is the full size visor, it doesn't really cover all of your face. If I compare this visor to where it would sit on your face to a pair of goggles, that bit is already on the helmet. You've only got this bit, which is normally there, so you still get a cold chin. What I also found with this, if you're doing any form of extreme manoeuvre and you get a slipstream underneath it, even though you can tighten it up quite well on the sides in these pivot points, the visor can actually then flick up and actually become an element of aerodynamic force and pull your head up, which is very, very uncomfortable, and I found that out from experience. I've done my long flights with that. It's great if you're doing straight line flights and you've got a chin sort of muff to keep the wind stream off your chin. That works very, very well. I then moved to goggles. It took me a couple of pairs of goggles to find the right sort. As you know, or as you can see, I wear glasses, and my glasses do actually fit very nicely inside this. And these aren't an expensive pair, but once they're on, it's very difficult to take the goggles off afterwards. But once they're in place, no matter what manoeuvre you're doing in flight, these won't come off. When I used to fit them to the helmet, I always used to fit the strap underneath the ear cup wires, so no matter what it would do, it would never come off and then end up going through my prop, which is always my biggest worry about using goggles. I've seen a few comments on other people's videos about actually fitting a visor. This visor fits on very, very easily, and I'll show you in about 30 seconds how easy it is to go on. What you get is several pieces. This is the main pivot point, and literally it just threads in on the side. There's a flat blade screwdriver. It doesn't clamp the helmet at all. It is purely just a pivot point. To stop it coming undone with any form of vibration, I always used to just put a little drop of thread lock on it, and that would keep it in place. You then basically get a slip washer, which would go underneath, and then a friction washer and a bolt. And that's the visor fitted. It is literally that simple. But if you over tighten that, you're not able to lift it up. If it's too loose, it will flick around at all times. The other thing I didn't like about launching with this type of visor is if you're doing a reverse launch and it's hot or whatever, but you need it for the long flight, you tend to have it up, and this would catch on the lines. If you then have it down, you then start to steam up, and then you also can't see. They do a short visor, which again will move up and down, but that's very much similar to flying with a pair of goggles, even though it would nicely go over your face, but then you still need to protect the lower part of your face from the slipstream. The next piece of information about helmets is actually probably only pertinent to the European side of the world, because we have what's known as European Standard or EN ratings. So aviation helmets actually come under what's known as an EN 966 rating, and that's an aviation standard for flying. So both my Solar X, my Scarab, and this Microlight helmet are all EN 966. I know that some insurance companies will allow other styles of helmet to be used, as in the snowboard helmets, but that's an EN 1077 rating, and it's only the alpha rating which is allowed to be used. So just to recap on a point I made in my last video about my new Scarab helmet and having a breakaway unit for my camera, so if it did ever get caught in anything, it wouldn't stop my helmet moving. I've fitted that to this helmet now. I've got a tether on the back. The camera doesn't want to come off in any attitude other than if it's actually broken away, and that can be reused and refitted. But it does mean that the camera won't disappear into my propeller in any way, shape or form. It just means my neck is not going to get caught on anything that will restrict me in its motion. I've got some lovely questions that you guys posed from my last video, and in a future video I'll be doing a Zoom Skype meeting with MicroAvionics, and they'll be able to answer all the questions that you've posed and some other ones that they've got in store as well. So until the next time everybody, fly safe.